Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back. This is Growth Factor. I call it Growth Factor so that we can grow together. And you're looking at Curtis Childs. He's the Vice President of Programming at the Swedenborg Foundation. Share with us your journey, please, Curtis, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here. And I love the idea of growth. And I'm here because I'm interested in spiritual growth. And actually I've needed spiritual growth because sort of my journey with this started when I hit a bout of pretty significant depression and anxiety, and I had obsessive compulsive disorder. It was like I was 18 or 19 years old, around there, and just my mind started to fall apart. And I didn't really have any labels to put on it. I didn't have much context for it. I just was kind of shocked that this was happening. And that set me, as it does for people, on this quest to like find answers and what can help, because it's not like there's really that much accessible to just fix you or explain things to you if you're there. So I looked at a couple of things. I got really into reading near-death experiences, which I know that your audience is familiar with and have been helpful in an incredible number of ways. I looked at other spiritually transformative experiences, and I came back to the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg, which I'd known about before. But Swedenborg, if anyone hasn't heard of him, is, I would say, the most extensive set of spiritual experiences, spiritually transformative experiences that anyone's ever recorded. He was writing, and it's also this cool historical window into the idea that people have been having spiritual experiences forever. So he was writing in the 1700s, and he was actually a really famous and accomplished scientist and inventor and government figure. He was a celebrity, and in his mid-50s went through a crisis and came out the other side having these spiritual experiences and getting to the point where he's having them every day for 30 years. And he was not just having them, but because he was so scientifically trained, he was really great at categorizing and cataloging everything that he came across. So what you end up with is this huge set of really clear insights into what the spiritual side of life is. And I see it as this way that I can take all these spiritual experiences that I hear about people having and understand how they relate to each other and why things happen like they do. And I came out of it feeling like, oh, I understand my own mind better. Because according to Swedenborg, the spiritual world, the world that we get a peek into when we have these spiritual experiences, it's around us and affecting our lives all the time. So the more you understand about it, the more you understand about yourself. And that's really been where it's hooked me, is that I got to go from having this mind that was confusing and seemed chaotic to me to starting to understand more of how to get out from under that and see things more as I believe they really are, and see a framework in which all the spiritual experiences that I've read about and learned from make sense. So there's a short version of my story.
Love that story, because that's usually what I tell people. The reason I started this channel, it took me 3 or 4 years to just start the channel. I had to think about it for a while. And it started because I was able to speak your language, probably the Swedenborg language, which I don't know well. I saw your videos probably 2-3 years ago. And I became a hypnotherapist. So I help people with exactly what you're talking about: anxiety, doom, things like that. And I also give some nutrition tips because food helped me. And like I said, that's why I call it Growth Factor, so we can grow together. And there's so many factors to growing, because I know right now, people listening, you've got something really irritating you. It's a neighbor, it's a spouse, an ex-spouse, siblings, someone in your life that's causing you to change, probably either to be a more patient person or more kind person, or just analyze your own life and figure out, why is this happening? And usually they're doing it to you for a reason. And it's your lessons, which is not easy and not fun. So I'd like to know how people could reach out to you, how you help. And I'd love to do a part 2 where I like to do a summary at first, and then we'll do part 2 so you can answer all of our questions.
Great. Yeah. So easiest way to find me and the team that I work with is youtube.com/offtheLeftEye. That's where we have 1,000 videos plus, digging deep into this world that Swedenborg describes and the answers that you find in there. And I think that everything you were just talking about, us having to overcome interpersonal challenges and figuring out how to care for ourselves, I've found insights into all that from Swedenborg's material. And I want to say that you were talking about nutrition and the importance of taking care of your whole self. And this definitely was true for me. It wasn't, you can't just like, I'm just going to go at spiritual philosophy and that's going to fix everything. It's a whole package. And I think that's what's cool about the world that Swedenborg described, is that it's a spiritual world that is, as I said, integrated with the physical world. So it's not like, oh, there's a spiritual, forget about the physical. The two really have to be, he talks about it sort of like a marriage, like the two have to work together. And that's when we get this health and growth that we're looking for.
Maybe one more thing before we get into part 2, which you can find by clicking my channel. It's a lavender circle. It says growth factor. And at the top, you'll see videos. Look at all those choices at the top. Click video and you'll just see a series of videos to find part 2 of Curtis. And maybe you can tell us either something that happened to you spiritually or a story you learned from Swedenborg, something that'll blow our minds about maybe NDEs or anything like that.
Sure. So something that blows my mind about what Swedenborg learned is the influence of the spiritual world on us. So when you're saying, I'm struggling with this particular person, I'm having these feelings come up. Well, Swedenborg was able to, as he started to get what he called his spiritual eyes open, see that nothing happens in a vacuum, that we are actually connected to the spiritual world and people who have passed on and are there now, and they can actually affect how we think and feel about things. So you sort of develop this sense of when a thought comes into your mind, when a feeling comes in, you can say, all right, instead of just assuming this is just all me and I'm going to go with it, you can examine it and say, do I really want to think that? Do I really want to feel that? Just like you would if somebody was saying negative messages to you, you would stop and think, like, is that true? Is that real? So being able to use that as a wedge to take myself a step back and really look at things and put them up against what I believe to be true about life, rather than just going with everything right away. That's been a total game changer for me in getting myself to live a life that's a lot more grounded and a lot more centered.
That's a really good tip. That makes sense. It's like I basically hearing you say self-talk. It's like looking in the mirror and saying, I can do this, I can get through it, versus life is so difficult. This is so difficult.
Yeah, because why would you want to say life is so difficult in the first place? We have this automatic negative running commentary that if you had a friend who did that to you, you'd block them, right? You wouldn't talk to them anymore. You'd be like, no, I can't hang out with you. But with our own minds, we just say, oh yeah, okay, well, you must be right. I would developing like a sort of an inner skepticism that just because it's in my mind doesn't mean it has a free pass to run my life.
So I'd like to ask, you said your YouTube channel, I forgot to give my email, but it'll be in the description below. Just hit that little arrow and I'll give you all the information to reach out to Curtis. Mine is growthfactor.org@gmail.com. Any other ways people can reach you?
Sure. Childs, CCHILDS @Swedenborg.com.
Okay. And in part 2, we'll talk about how you can help people, more about Swedenborg, more about theories, how you got yourself out of that darkness. And anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to everyone listening right now?
Wherever you are, and whatever you're dealing with, like you said, I think that one of the coolest things is when we can all get into those dark spaces, we learn something. And what's been really helpful for me is being able to take what I've learned in there and tell it to other people. So if you're ever looking to, how can I make some meaning out of this? Just notice when you're in that tough time, what am I learning? And that could be like, I just understand more what it is to suffer, or it could be, I can understand how much harm can come from doing these kind of actions. And then we can turn around and teach the world how to not do that. And so in that way, the tough things all of us are going through can help all of us be more supported and immune to that stuff in the future.
Thank you, Curtis. Well, we're both here to support you, and that's what it takes, is everyone helping each other. That's why we have to go to sometimes physical therapy or a counselor, or learn what Curtis has to say, or a hypnotherapist. So thank you everyone for being here. Just type in for part 2. You could type it in the title, or you can go to my channel and find part 2 and find Curtis again. Thank you, Curtis.
See you there.
Bye, everyone.